Okay, hi, I'm Kat. I'm here interviewing the lovely Jason on behalf of Rem and Catalyst. Jason, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, I'm Jason Hansa. I'm one of the freelance writers for Catalyst Games. I've been writing since about 2007, I believe. And so, I've been one of the fiction writers for the BattleTech side of the house.
Okay, so what does that mean?
For the fiction, BattleTech has a very rich tradition of fiction, over 40 years of stories, of short stories, novels, in various anthologies. And I'm one of the fiction writers that helps move the universe along. The universe grows, it shapes, people rise, villains rise, they fall, heroes rise, they die. So the universe isn't static in the BattleTech universe. There's over 1,000 years of history, but most of the games are focused in about a 150-year stretch.
Okay.
From about 3,000 up to 3,150. So, I write some of the fiction. I recently had a novel come out about a week ago, which is, I'm not sure when this will be released, but so.
Pretty soon, I think.
Yeah. It was released to the Kickstarter backers. It's called A Skulk of Foxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will be out in print on demand, I believe, and a Kindle version on the 23rd of August. So
wow, that's super soon.
Yeah, pre-releases are out. So. Mm-hmm.
And how long does it take to write a book like that?
It depends. Every writer's different. Mm-hmm. Every writer has their own pace and speed, but it certainly takes several months. I mean, if you write a book in a month, you get a month-long book. So
you get what you put into it.
You get what you put into it. Skulk of Foxes took me several months, and then it actually grew. It grew from a novella up to a novel in size as the various edits came along. So, but yeah, it's a book can take, generally always takes several months.
So what's the cutoff between a novella and a novel?
Generally the novellas are generally about 30,000 words to 40,000 words. Novellas go from about 20,000 to about 40,000. Novels kick off at 40,000.
Okay. So
novellas are right in that 20 to 40. So
like a master's thesis is a novella, and then once you get to your doctorate, you're writing a novel.
Yes.
For me, that's what those word counts say to me. I'm like, okay, once you get over 40.
It is a good way to look at it, though. Master thesis is, for fiction writers, run about 110 pages, so a novel. So
okay, yes, for fiction that does. Yes, yeah, that's fair.
A short story is often defined as something you can sit and read in one sitting comfortably. At
the average reader's speed, I'm assuming.
Right.
Like, there'll be a lot of variables.
A lot of variables. Yeah. And then a novella is something that you can either do in one sitting if you really push it, or it's a 2-day kind of read. And then a novel is obviously a multi-day kind of thing.
Like a proper,
Right. But
so how did you get into this?
I wanted to. At the time, BattleTech had Battle Cores, which was fiction that was being published. It was a subscription service with fiction being published every month.
So when was this?
This was back in 2001 to 2000.
Okay.
And it kicked off like around 2001, 2002, and it ended right in the 2015 era.
Okay.
So it was a subscription service, and you got some freebies here and there, and also fiction every month. And BattleCore had an open solicitation process. You could send in. They had an open slush pile, and you could send in your fiction. If they accepted it, you were in. And so I just kept writing, and the editors at the time would send back rejection letters, but with some advice. Hey, you're getting closer. Hey, I like this. I didn't like that. And eventually, I wrote a story that clicked, and I sent and they said, okay, you're in. And I just kept going.
So how many stories in was this? Like 5 stories, 20 stories, 50 stories?
I think it was about my 5th one.
Okay.
That finally
That's still
clicked.
Lots, right?
It is.
That feels like, wow,
it is.
finally.
And, writing is a painful process because you're working your butt off and you're hoping people accept your art, and to be rejected and to keep going forward. I mean, not just writing, but any art, when you sit there, it just takes time. A painter's first paintings are going to be terrible. A sculptor's first sculptor is going to be terrible. Tattoo artists, you don't want to be their first victim.
No, I think that's why they use like training things now,
exactly.
like fruit or something.
Exactly. So it takes time to hone a craft, and writing is exactly that. It's like learning an instrument, learning a martial art. Anything that takes time to learn takes time to learn. I wish I could say it's better than that. I'm not a speaker.
Oh, that's pretty good. So you were already into BattleTech when you decided to write for them?
Yes.
So
Long-time fan. I'd been playing since the 80s. And so, just a longtime fan. Read all the books. Even when I was I was stationed in Korea as a young soldier, and at the time the AFIs had bookstores, and the BattleTech books were on the shelves. And so, I'd sit there and I'd scuba the BattleTech. So I was able to stay up with the fiction all through my Army time. And so then, I loved it. So even when I wasn't able to get a lot of games in, I was still on the fiction side. I was still buying the source books and keeping up on the universe. And so
you were active service,
right? Yes,
and you were interested in this side of things as well. Was it? Was there something about that sort of helped you get through what you were doing, or was it like?
I was just, I was always a sci-fi reader. Even when I was in grade school, middle school, and stuff like that. So BattleTech, being a military sci-fi universe, did appeal to me, I guess, as military sci-fi nerd. So, but BattleTech is it's military sci-fi with a lot of political undertrappings and stuff like that. It's a great universe to get into. And so, I enjoyed it. So.
And so you may have started off with fanfic type things that you wrote to entertain yourself, or you went straight into I'm going to write a series?
I was not knowledgeable enough. Fan fiction is a great way to hone your chops for people who, a lot of fan fiction writers do end up writing for, now Shrapnel is BattleTech's current magazine with short stories. And a lot of fan fiction writers do make the jump in because they've already been spending those hours typing. Writing is like running. You have to get on the treadmill or you have to beat the streets. So fan fiction writers kind of make the jump easier because they've been putting in all the time and effort on their own time. So I did not do that. I didn't realize that at the time. But when I do talk to people who want to write, I'm like, you're writing fan fiction? That's great. Keep that up. And so, no, I just I'm like, oh, okay. I just was sent it in, hope for the best. So, which a lot of people also do, so there's no right way.
And so if someone out there is like, I would really like to actually be a published writer for, say, BattleTech, what's your advice for them? What do you think they should do? BattleTech
does have a magazine, a short story magazine. It comes out 4 times a year, every 90 days. It's called Shrapnel. And that does have an open solicitation process where there's a website, and you sit there. However, in every Shrapnel, there's a list of do's and don'ts, things that the editor is looking for.
That's super helpful.
It is. And it's also the rules. Step 1 of becoming a writer is showing you can be a professional writer, which means follow the rules. If the editor wants this and the editor doesn't want that, then obey the rules.
Yep.
This is not just for Shrapnel. This is for anything you ever want to write for. Editors put down the rules because that's the first cut. If you can't obey the rules when you send in the paper, they don't even want to look at your paper because they know that you're going to be a problem child down the road. So that's the first easy hack. It's the first hurdle. Look at what they want and do that.
It's like any work where you're working on commission in some way, right?
Yes.
You can sort of say, hey, by the way, this could be really interesting.
Yeah.
But not when you're just doing a blind submission.
Right. And it's when you're writing and you're sending in, you are asking for a job.
Yeah.
This is, hi, I would like money. I'm offering you a story. Please pay me for it. If a lot of people don't take it seriously, a lot of people just treat it as a joke, and it's not. Writing is hard. It takes time. It takes time to hone your craft. And so, like I said, and editors are professionals. They have been doing this a long time, and they have no time for your shenanigans. So,
and for the people who aren't clear on what an editor is or does, can you just give us a quick outline of what you think they do?
Okay, for an editor, sits there, they'll scrub the manuscript. They'll, if they accept it, they'll scrub the manuscript. They'll tell you what works, what doesn't work. And this is also part of writing. Is a writer often is too close to their own work to see it clearly. There's things in there. You'll hear different versions. Kill your babies, kill your golden cows. Whatever term you want. There are things in your manuscript that you might love that don't actually fit. Right. And the editor is that neutral set of eyes to sit there and say, this part is not working, but this part is great. Give me more of great, cut that. And again, part of being a professional writer is saying, Roger, and doing what their editor says. You might be able to sit there and have a little bit of free play, sit there and say, I think it's important. but the editors are that neutral set of eyes, or the neutral look, and they're also the boss.
Yeah.
Going back to being a professional writer, being professional. So, and that's what editors do. And then there's different other variants of editors, like there's copy editors that just sit there and look for grammar and spelling errors and stuff like that. They're not so much interested in the story as finding all the things. And
that was the next question I
yes.
had, actually, because a lot of people think editors only do spelling and grammar and things. And there's so much more to it.
There's so much more. There's variants of editors. And so, yeah, we're lucky enough that we have editors, and we've got a good team of copy editors that have been sitting there working, yeoman's work. But it also, another point of being a good writer is finding people to try and give you that free advice, to be that neutral set of eyes before you send it to an editor. I strongly encourage everybody who's trying to get in to find a writing group. And find people around you that are also working. You read their stuff, they read yours. Reading other people's work will also make you a better writer, because you're seeing how they approach a problem, seeing how they do. And so also reading, period. And I'm not just saying writing shifts over time. If all you read is 1960s pulp fiction, then you're going to write like a pulp fiction writer, which is great if that was what you want to be. However, depending on what you want to write, you may need to read contemporary fiction that's on the shelves now, so you know what editors are looking for nowadays.
That makes sense.
Right. You're not looking. The editors of the 60s are not editing today's books. You need to know what today's readers are looking for. But just reading in general is also just that's a baseline. That's your foundation to being a good writer.
This is fascinating because I'm a board game designer, right? And so all the things that you're saying, I'm like, yes, this works just like playtesting. This works just like if the only people who playtest your game are your friends, you're not going to get the feedback that you need. And also, they're your friends, so they're either going to be nice to you or they're just going to be the same to you.
Right.
So one of the other questions I was going to ask off the back of that, when I'm playtesting a game, at first I'll develop it, I'll work on it a little bit, but then I sort of socialize it with people who aren't game designers and who haven't had experience with it. Do you do that with writing? Is that something you need to do? I try.
It's hard with BattleTech because BattleTech is its own kind of sci-fi universe. So you kind of have to find sci-fi people so you're not bringing them up to speed from nothing. But yes, I do try to, when I can, I try to bounce ideas off of different people. I do have a small group of friends that I trust that are BattleTech readers, but I trust them enough to give me back honest feedback. This works, this did not. And that helps. It really does. But yeah, it's hard to go outside of the BattleTech circle or out of writing circles because I love my mom dearly, and she says all my writing is great, but it's my mom, that's not the feedback I need.
No. For anyone who's wondering, if someone's asking you for feedback, saying this is really nice, that's not helpful.
Not helpful.
Find us the thing, like it's nice to say nice things, but find us the things where you're like, I was a bit uncomfortable with this, or I didn't like the way that the sentence sounded. Like that's what we actually want, and it feels weird as someone giving feedback to say that.
Yeah,
But if you help us now, you're basically, I use this analogy, right? So you know how you see these people on like singing competitions and you think, don't they have any friends? Because someone let them go on stage like that.
Yes, somebody sent them up there.
That's what you're doing. You are saving us from going on stage like that. So if you ever see something that someone's made and you think, this bit, I'm not sure about this bit, just tell them. If they're asking you for feedback, don't tell them off the cuff. If they're asking you for feedback, tell them.
Right. Yeah, telling them also what works is good, but they really need to know what's not working and why, Just saying I didn't like it. That's not helpful at all either.
How did it make you feel? Like, was it this sentence made me feel uncomfortable, or I don't think that's how this word works, or this, if you're deeply knowledgeable about the context, like this is not how this person would act, or those sorts of things.
Well,
right?
One of the best feedback I need help with is BattleTech is a very military sci-fi universe. And so most people who come in have a very solid understanding of how militaries work. But I have to also make sure that I'm not assuming the reader knows that. So I have to sometimes take a step back and sit there and say, does everybody know what enfilading fire means?
Yes, I can see I know what the words mean, and I can extrapolate from that what I think it means.
Exactly.
But no, I don't have a military background, so no, I can't be sure that's what it is.
Right.
But whereas I know things like crossfire, I understand what a crossfire is and being caught in the crossfire. I'm like, so there's this place.
Right.
That's exactly
that's exactly kind of feedback that's really helpful is when people start getting too jargony or too into the weeds or just assuming the reader knows. So
that's a very good point. So you got into this, originally you were someone who played BattleTech.
Right.
And then you thought, oh, it would be nice to write about BattleTech.
Yes.
And now that you do it, what's it like?
It's mind-blowingly fun. It's humbling because, the stuff I put out there is like shaping the universe. So, especially like the Skulk of Foxes was like, there's big novels that kind of like shape the universe, and there's a lot of fiction that kind of dances on the edges. And my bread and butter, especially in the early days, was finding those hidden holes that hadn't been fleshed out and kind of fleshing them out. And that was what I loved to do, and that was my bread and butter. And so now that I'm actually kind of like working on bigger projects, it's scary and awesome and humbling and terrifying, and it's wonderful and amazing when it hits. Like like yesterday, somebody online was like, I just read this book and I loved it. Thank you, yay! So
that's so cool. Like that must feel really weird when you've been the one who read the books.
Yes.
And now someone's doing that. Like, what is there a particular thing that you've written or a change that you've made that you really feel excited about and that you can't wait to see how people react to it, or a moment where it was like, oh yeah, I did that and people are really excited about it that you could talk about?
Let me think about that first. I mean,
this is job interview question stuff, yes. Isn't it? Tell me about a time when.
Tell me about a time when. One story that is out there that I love when people discover is the quote unquote the football story.
Okay.
It's like kind of a legend. People are like, it's because in the history, this one planet didn't have any defenders, so they said they'd play a football game for the world.
Okay.
And the Clan Ghost Bear accepted, and the Ghost Bears trounced them. And so I fleshed out that story. I wrote a short story on it, and it was accepted. It was approved. There's no battle mechs in it. There's no combat. It's a football story. It's the point of view is the quarterback, and people don't believe the story exists. People are like, oh, it's the football story. What are you talking about? So I am really happy about the football story. And yeah, when people discover the football story, it makes me happy.
And where could they find the football story if they wanted to read it now?
The football story is in the Slack Tide anthology on Amazon. It's not in print. It's only on Kindle, I believe.
Okay.
And so it is available.
But you can get it.
So I am super excited about the book that just came out about a week ago, to answer your question, because the Clan Sea Fox has not seen a lot of fleshing out. They've been dancing in the peripheries. They kind of swoop in as either a guardian angel or an annoyance, or it's kind of like plot devices, but they haven't really been like, this is who they are, this is how they think, this is what colors they wear. I mean, just stuff like that. And my latest novel, I did a little bit of that at the lowest levels. We've seen a little bit of how the cons think. This is just people on the lowest levels of their merchant class and like their intelligence agencies. And so I'm super happy, and I'm really hoping people connect to that. It is still so new that it's hard to see. It's hard to gauge reactions. I mean, some people like it. So far, there hasn't been a lot of negative comments, but a lot of people haven't read it yet. So, here's hoping, knock on wood.
So if people want to read it, how do they get it?
Well, right now it's a Kickstarter download. So people who back the Mercenaries Kickstarter, it's in your Dropbox. You can pull it down and read it, and I hope you like it. For everybody else, again, it's going to be available on the 23rd. It's available for pre-order.
Cool.
I'm also really happy in that story. A mercenary unit who's been listed and it has a lot of articles, but it's never been fleshed out in fiction in 40 years. I mean, they've been there since the beginning, and has never seen fiction.
What's the unit called?
It's called the Screaming Eagles. They're a mercenary unit, and I use them. So it's a Sea Fox Screaming Eagle story, and I'm super excited to take this unit that has had a troubled past and just kind of write the beginnings maybe of a redemption story for them, or a redemption arc. So
it makes me think a little bit about the missing Ninth Legion Because of course, we always think about the Roman Empire about every 10 minutes. Don't we?
Exactly. Got to be thinking about Rome.
But the story of the Ninth Legion?
They got
just disappeared
in the Hurtgen Forest or whatever.
Yeah. Is it that kind of a story? Is it a completely like just no one's told the story of this and it's
always occurred in source books. When they have appeared, like during the Fourth Succession War, one of their colonels committed a war crime. Some of the soldiers committed a war crime, and they were all dismissed. And but that was never fleshed out in fiction. It was just it happened in a source book, and then other things would happen in source books, and then it happened in source books, and all the way down the road,
but the story hasn't been told.
The story hasn't been told. So I brought them into the latest era, the 3151. They're still just struggling. They're just hanging on by their fingernails, trying to survive in this new era. And so, they end up, working. They end up picking a mission up, as they try to defend this BattleTech factory. So, yeah, it's.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah, to try and flesh out this unit, to bring a new unit to light, to give give a spotlight on somebody. So.
Especially when there are lots of little bits that you get to tie together.
Yes.
That's cool. Because then, you can make it feel, I don't know if you say this in this context, but a bit more canon because it's sort of integrated with the story, but you're building it out rather than going off in a weird direction or anything.
Right.
Yeah. That's probably better.
Yes, yeah. Having pieces, hooks you can tie it to the past. That's why I wanted to use the Eagles versus creating a new unit. Because this is a storied unit that they're trying to rebuild their legacy, as opposed to because a lot of writers have been doing great work in creating new units that are trying to build a legacy, and so I'm like, I wanted to try something different. I wanted to work on something different. Just give the reader something else.
That's cool. Thank you. Okay, so we have got, what's the name of the book again?
A Skulk of Foxes.
Okay, and that's going to be...
A group of foxes.
A group of foxes,
yeah. A pack-in. There's different terms, yeah.
And that's going to be available on the 23rd pre-order.
Yeah.
And the pre-order is available through the website, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know about the website. I know it's on Amazon, but I assume it'll start being available on like Drive-Thru-RPG and the website and stuff like that. So cool. I'm excited.
Awesome. And is there anything else that you would like to tell us about?
Not just that this is an exciting time for BattleTech. The fiction is rolling. The universe, I think the universe is in a good spot. The universe, a lot of people have lots of different takes, but I think the BattleTech universe is in one of the most interesting spots it's been in for 20 years. There's a lot of different places for people to read about. There's and for people that are trying to run campaigns, at their local table, there's so many different areas and so many different things you can do. It's an exciting time to be a player. And because a lot of people are coming back to the game and the rules have never changed. I mean, there's been small tweaks, but it's been really fun at like our local tables, seeing these people that had played back in the 90s, but haven't really picked up in about 20 years, but they're coming back and seeing these classic sculpts on the table, next to the new CGL plastic. It's an exciting time as a player. I think it's an exciting time as a reader. I'm thrilled to be part of it. I'm thrilled every time a story gets out there. So
that's really cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm a writer, but I'm also a fan at heart. I started as a fan. I still love the stuff, and I pick it all up. I play every other weekend. It's just I do. We have a local table, and we have also another local game store. So yeah, I'm playing about every 14 days.
Wow.
So yeah, I love it as a writer and a fan. So,
and you get to play your own stories as well, I guess.
Oh, yes, I have fielded. And sometimes, though, it's also to test them. Because it's like, okay, I wrote this star into a story. Does it actually work on the table? So I have tested some, but the story, I'm not like writing the story based on what happens on the game. This is more of just does this make sense?
How does this feel?
Yeah. How does this feel? How does it a vibe check? And also just to sometimes I'll put a mech on the table that I wrote the back fiction for. It's like, yeah, I wrote that. This is my mech. Even though I didn't create it,
That must feel really cool.
It is fun.
I wrote the story of this thing.
And
now it's going to blow you up.
Yes. Well, then usually I die.
No.
And then they mock me. But,
Sadness.
That's BattleTech.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is pretty much how it's supposed to work.
Exactly.
So,
the more you tease somebody, the more that you're going to catch that Gauss rifle. It's the laws of the universe.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. That's been really interesting.
No, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And everyone keep an eye out for A Skulk of Foxes, which will be available for pre-order on the 23rd.
Yeah.